Alex and I were deep in conversation and completely forgot that there was a show we were supposed to be doing. We did it?
Yay.
Yeah? We're... Okay, you guys. Hello, welcome to the program. And it's the 23rd of July. I'm sorry. That was a little internal, oh, where does the time fly moment. But I guess every time I say the date, I feel that way. As if I should be shocked it's the 23rd, when yesterday I said it's the 22nd. Did I act shocked then? Jeez. At any rate, it'll be a Tuesday, but Susan won't be joining me today. So he's you, he's me, and whatever conversation we choose to have. I know it might seem like I'm in control here, but I assure you I'm not. You can interrupt this program like that simply by, as you know, calling. What is that number? 412-316-3381. There you go. I don't know whether to start with the baby or not. Should I not? I don't want to chase you all away. Okay, quick. No, yeah, okay. Here are my thoughts. Here's my one thought, which I'll probably embellish and embroider upon, but my one thought from the heart. This poor little boy. This poor innocent child. Good God. Good God. It's, that's all I have to say, I guess. I feel sorry for this little kid. I think he has two very loving parents, but they're living in Crazyville. I mean, it's not a normal life. And look at even what I'm doing right now. I was coming in and on the Blue Torch, they're screaming and yelling and making fun of, this baby who gives it. And I'm thinking, well, they're making fun of the big to-do about the baby, but then they're part of the to-do that they're making part of it. I mean, the only way to avoid it is simply not to mention it. See, so I'm already part of it. So this poor kid. That's a big baby for such a thin-hipped beauty to disgorge. How did she do that? You think it was no, they said she might come home today, so it wasn't a C-section. Oh, God. Spoken like a woman who's never given birth. God! I can't imagine. So, really, that's all I have to say. This poor child. Oh! Anyway. I saw something in the Tribune Review from yesterday's paper, which is just astonishing. It's about our boy mayor and his latest no-show. He's simply not, he hasn't been there in a long time. But he's making absolutely no effort to cloak the fact now that we're giving him a paycheck and he literally is not showing up. Turns out that the 42nd annual conference of the Pennsylvania Mayors Association was held over the weekend. The Pennsylvania Mayors Association. One can only assume that the mayor of Pittsburgh would be a card-carrying member and also a member of some substantial standing, coming from the second largest city in the state. And the thing is that the 42nd annual conference of the Pennsylvania Mayors Association was held over the weekend in Pittsburgh. So all the mayors from all over the state came here to Pittsburgh for their meeting. And guess which mayor didn't show up? I mean, come on. I don't give a damn if he doesn't show up at a conference. But when he is the host, he's hosting the conference. If the conference is in Pittsburgh, the mayor of Pittsburgh is the host. He doesn't show up when it's in his own city. I'm just dumbfounded. And according to the Tribune Review, there's been no explanation forthcoming from the mayor's office about why he was not there to graciously greet the other mayors of the Commonwealth. I mean, I really am stunned. I am stunned. Unless he was running 104-degree fever and, hallucinating or something, I cannot imagine what the excuse would be. I mean, I never found this guy impressive, and I often found him immature, but I don't know. Is this some experiment that I don't know about as whether or not a major American city can exist without a mayor, with no leadership at all? Because if it is, we're doing really well. Have you noticed? I mean, Pittsburgh's been getting nothing but great reviews. I pointed out yesterday, and I saw the PG picked it up today, this report that says that if you're born poor in Pittsburgh, you have a better chance than anywhere else in the country of moving up. Which strikes me as amazing, but there it is, and no one can quite figure out why. But as you know, Pittsburgh continues to get like these great reviews, and we're now gaining population. We're held up as the Rust Belt city, blah, 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 to reinvent itself and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of the upturn has happened during the tenure of Luke Ravenstahl. But you and I know it had nothing to do with him. It happened. It just was happening and continues to happen. And the city sort of just goes on its way, and there's no one at the helm. Now, I think it is going to be a real shock when, and I'm making a big assumption here, right, when Bill Peduto takes the oath of office. Because we know that Bill Peduto is somebody who is serious about this job. So my guess is we are going to go, and I think it'll be a little disorienting. We are going to literally go from having no mayor at all for a year or two or three, however you want to date Luke's total disappearance. We're going to go from having no mayor at all to having someone who is so gung-ho and has so many ideas and wants to be hands-on and wants to do a million things and wants to be there for everybody and is going to be all over and visible and would never, ever consider not showing up at the Pennsylvania Mayor's Conference, even if it were being held in, I don't know, Wilmerding. That's always my fallback city for when I want a strange place name. I think it's really going to be startling. But as I said, I'm making an assumption in suggesting that Bill Peduto will be the next mayor there's, of course, a general election that still has to be held in November. And he has a Republican opponent, Josh Wander. Excuse me. I got to learn to say Josh Wander without laughing. Okay. Excuse me. I never met him personally. Josh Wander, who has already had national exposure. I mean, for a Republican candidate in Pittsburgh, this is amazing. He has had national exposure because he's been featured on that television show Preppers, which I have never seen myself, but he is one of those people who is quite certain that the end is near. And he's got a lot of guns, and he's got a little retreat somewhere. I don't know if he identifies where it is because, I mean, in the case of the end, if you tried to, like, get into Josh Wander's little bunker, he'd probably kill you. I mean, I think that's the point of having these bunkers, right? So that's the Republican candidate. Excuse me. So anyway, yeah, Peduto. I think you could go out on a limb and say, I think Peduto. Right? I'm not a gambling person, never have been, but Peduto. Except for this little entry. Did I see this in the paper? I don't even have it here. No. I did see it, though. The city council president, second in line. It's like being the vice president. Second in line to the mayoralty is Darlene Harris. And she apparently is attempting to raise funds to run for mayor. Now, Darlene Harris is a Democrat, but she would run as an independent. So it could be we will have Bill Peduto, Darlene Harris, and Joshua Wander. I'm sorry, I gotta stop. I have to be able to say that name and not laugh. Joshua Wander. Darlene Harris, I could almost laugh. Well, let me. You gotta be kidding. I don't know. Darlene Harris has been in the public eye for decades now, in a public role. I first became aware of her presence in our community because she served for a long time on the school board, and I believe was president of the school board. And then she moved on to the city council, and now is president of the council. So you would argue, well, wow, here's a woman who has paid her dues, is moving on up. And you could say to me, Lynn, you're always decrying the fact that when you look at Pittsburgh leadership, all you see are white men. White men. And it's true. And I've often wondered where the women are, where the minorities are. Well, here's Darlene Harris. So you would think that I would be, supportive. Darlene Harris has, ever since I laid eyes on her and or read a quote or saw her on TV, has been to me somebody who I cringe. I cringe. I have such a negative reaction. And I know that when I look at where she stands on certain issues and what she has said, I just generally don't agree with her. I mean, we're generally on other sides. There's also something. Have you ever seen her smile? Seriously, think of getting a picture of Darlene Harris in your head. Is it just me? But have you ever seen her? She just doesn't look like somebody I want to have a beer with. And I want to say something else, and this is horribly mean, and it is beneath me. But she looks dumb. And sometimes people look dumb and are smart, but she looks dumb, and I think she is dumb. There's a sense in me that there's not a lot going on upstairs. I don't know, how do you become the president of a school board and you don't have something going on upstairs? But I just don't think she does. It's like Roethlisberger, the dumbest looking quarterback in the NFL, right? I mean, really, look at his face. And if you were to just look at the face, come on, I'm engaging in silliness here and in prejudice brought on just by the way somebody looks, their shell, and it's not right. But I think we all do that. Roethlisberger looks stupid. He just does. He's got that look. And I don't know. I don't think he is the brightest bulb, but I understand that you cannot be a quarterback and not have a certain level of intelligence. But so I think Darlene Harris is to city council presidents what Roethlisberger is to NFL quarterbacks. They just look dumb. And that's all I have to say. And, Darlene, you're free to make aspersions in my direction, definitely. And I should apologize for what I've just said about you. And I have sort of said. It's nothing but I have nothing to stand on other than that's my reaction. Oh, Ray. Ray has written about, see, right there, that poor child. The subject line is new royal spawn. Little baby. Lynn, I wonder if its horns and cloven hooves scratched her womb on the way out. God! Ray! Oh, that is so awful. That is so awful. This poor baby, this poor little boy. He's a big boy, as I said. This poor big little boy. Oh. And look at being born into that family. Oh, my God. And what is this American? The Americans go berserk. American media. Did I read right? Somebody said somewhere in the paper today that 2 network anchors did the news from London last night. Oh. That's unbelievable. Do these guys remember 1776? What the hell? But, it's not so shocking because, as I was mentioning the other day, that network news has become so shameful. It's not even, it too does not make an effort, sort of like our boy mayor, does not make an effort to even pretend that it is doing its job anymore. It is softened up to the point of such embarrassment. I do not know how people that are bright, like they are. We know they are, those network types. They're smart. They know their subjects. They can handle themselves when disaster strikes, all that kind of stuff. They're professionals, but they're now working for organizations that don't care anything about a journalistic mission. Nothing. They just care, of course, about making as much money as they can and staying alive. And, geez, how you go down. It used to be you would be proud to be a network anchor. And now I think that in your heart you'd have to be embarrassed. Not necessarily that you rose to that position, but that you are the front person for a product that purports to be something that it no longer is and hasn't been in some time, but just keeps getting worse and worse. Beyond me. Okay, I'll tell you what. I am going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Feel free to, Ray, I'm assuming, God, that is such a horrible, I wonder if, feel free, and in a minute.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. This week, great deals on Jerome Bettis Grill vouchers. Supplies are limited. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. bergbargains.com.
You are round MVP.
Yeah, man. Yo, Drew, I finally got round MVP. Round MVP.
No way. That was some ownage.
Finally earning round MVP takes determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Visit knowhowtogo.org to learn what you should be doing right now to prepare for college. Start taking the steps at knowhowtogo.org. Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Did you see that thing about George Zimmerman rescuing some people?
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, I just did. And her reaction was, oh my God, why was that? Well, here's what my reaction was. How lucky is this guy?
Yeah.
How lucky is this guy? He's afraid to go outside because so many people just look at him and see a murderer, a lucky murderer. A guy who was able to literally get away with it. And so apparently the first time he got the nerve to step outside, he comes upon a vehicle that is, turned over or something, and helps to pull the people out. They're uninjured. And then goes on his way. Just a neighborhood watchman doing his job. I thought, how lucky are you that your first time out, you encountered this, and it allows for this, George Zimmerman hero headline. Jeez. Oh, well. So, I hate to get all serious on you. Maybe I won't. Oh, I just have one more question. I'm looking at a picture of the Pope. As popes go, I like this guy. I'm looking at a picture of the Pope walking away from the plane with the president of Brazil, Dilma Rousseff. And here's my thing. He's not wearing red shoes. I thought the Pope, what were all those red shoes about? Who started the red shoes thing? I thought it was part of the uniform. Because all the popes Benedict had red shoes. John Paul, I'm already getting my guys mixed up. The long tenured guy before him, John Paul.
Pope John Paul.
Pope John Paul the third? No. Second. He had them. So I just sort of thought, and I've often said, you get to wear, those beautiful robes and red shoes. He's wearing black shoes. It's another reason I like him. He's not wearing those flashy red shoes. He, who I understand, while I was gone, said to the priests of the world, hey, stop driving around in flashy cars. Didn't he say that? Yeah, essentially that. And what's so funny is the day after I saw that the Pope said that, I happened to look out the window where I was staying in St. Andrews, Scotland. And I was staying across from the Catholic Church in that little town. And It's a little church, because I guess most people in Scotland are not Catholic. I don't know, but why would that be? Mary, Queen of Scots, had her head cut off in part because she was Catholic. No? At any rate, the priest pulls up in a BMW. I see a BMW pull up, and this very jaunty-looking priest with a white straw hat, looked very cool, it gets out of the BMW. And I was thinking, oh, I'm willing to bet this priest already knew what the Pope had said and was really feeling miserable about it. But I also had the impression he was not going to give up his BMW. And I don't know if that qualifies as a flashy car in Europe, does it? I'm not sure. Okay, here's where I was fearing to go, but I'm going to. There was a piece in a long, difficult piece that you had to be conscientious to read, and you had to really have your, as my second grade teacher always said, have your thinking cap on to read. And I profess that I didn't always follow it, even though I was sort of trying to. It's very complicated. And I didn't follow. I'm proud that I didn't follow it. You know why? I didn't follow it because it's about something that the Wall Street banks are up to. And as you know, every time we look at what these banks are up to, they're almost always up to no good. And they are up to no good that damages the rest of us and the economies of the world. And what they're up to is playing this game. It's a game they play of figuring out how to accumulate the most wealth by finding the tiniest loopholes, the littlest, bittiest ways to maybe circumvent a regulation, and then making away with billions and billions and billions, and invariably with their games that they play. And we saw this. This is what brought us almost to another depression. Not so long ago. And we're still crawling out from. These banks are up to no good again. Their brilliant little minds, their selfish, greedy little souls have come up and always will with a new game and a new way to corner this market, to accumulate over here. And I pat myself on the back for not quite being able to comprehend it, simply because, to me, it is insane. It's just insane. It's insane that this was what people would do for a living. It's insane because it does absolutely nothing to improve the world. It's insane because it's based on greed and nefarious little mathematical shenanigans. It's an indication, of course, that, as Bob Dylan famously said, we are only pawns in their game. And even after the debacle that the banks and Wall Street brought upon us, and the speculators brought upon us, here they go again. I don't know if I'm capable of explaining to you their latest trick, but I think I can paint a picture in my own sort of childish manner of what it is they're doing with the help of the Times. They did a huge 2-page spread on it. And what they focused on was just one metal And it's a metal that Pittsburghers, know something about because it's aluminum. Or as the little royal baby will learn to say, aluminium. Don't the Brits say aluminium? And that's another thing I've never understood, because if you say aluminium, then it would be aluminium. Do they spell it differently? I know I'm always asking these questions, but I swear they say aluminium. Maybe not. It's about aluminum and how playing their games, these banks have sort of cornered, they own, specifically this is Goldman Sachs. They sort of own all the aluminum in the world almost. And guess what? This is the most bizarre thing. They store it in huge warehouses, stacked in these huge, huge bars, 15 feet high, row after row after row, in, get this, the bankrupt city of Detroit. What? I know, you can't make this up. This is one of those stories that'll never see a lot of light. The media is not, certainly the network news is not going to cover it because it's too complicated. But this is the kind of story that you need to hear. Okay, I'll read the first paragraph, which will give you a sense. Your pocket is getting picked every day by this. Thank you, caller. Here we go. Hundreds of millions of times a day, thirsty Americans open a can of soda, beer, juice, and every time they do, they pay a fraction of a penny more because of a shrewd maneuver by Goldman Sachs and other financial players that ultimately costs consumers billions and billions of dollars. Because if it's one thing banks know is a half a penny, which we sneer at pennies. You're gonna stoop to get a penny? I don't think so. Penny is pain in the neck. Banks, big banks, care about a percentage of a penny. Because when you start adding those up, you can get to billions. And the New York Times reporter points out that how you turn a little teeny part of a penny into billions of dollars is a story that pretty much you have to go and see these 27 warehouses in the Detroit area. It becomes almost impossible to explain this to you, but get this. Every day in this warehouse complex, truckers come in and they pile their big semis up with these huge stacks of aluminum. They have been made into 1,500-pound bars, big, huge things. And each day a fleet of trucks goes into one of the warehouses, pulls them out of these stacks. Individual bar here, a bar there. You have no idea. This is insane. And then guess what it does when it's full? It trucks it over to another warehouse on the same property and unloads it into that warehouse. Back and forth, they spend their days loading and changing these bars from warehouse to warehouse. Now, you need read no further to know that if something like that is going on, something nefarious is afoot, right? Because there's no reasonable explanation for that, why this would be. And it says 2 or 3 times a day, sometimes more, the drivers make the same circuits. They load in one warehouse, then they unload in another. And then they turn around and they do it again. And they said this little dance has been choreographed by the smart little despicable cookies at Goldman Sachs to exploit, of course, regulations set up by a commodities exchange. Obviously, some of these regulations say that something has to be moved, right? And so, once a bar is moved to another facility, this and that. Don't ask me what the regulation is. Just listen to the forklift driver, Tyler Clay, who's been doing this, schlepping. Can you imagine doing that for a job? Schlepping it back and forth, back and forth. Tyler Clay says, it's a merry-go-round of metal. That's all it is. And, as I said, only about 1/10 of a penny or 1/10 of the price of an aluminum can be traced back to this little maneuver. But it adds up to billions. Okay, let me see if I can explain this any more to you. It says what it has done to is inflate the price of aluminum. That's what they're doing. They have it all, and somehow by doing this little dance, back and forth, excuse me, they are able to inflate the price of aluminum. Now, if you think of everything that's in aluminum, that means that the price then of everything you ever get that comes in a can, and obviously aluminum goes into more than cans, gets inflated because they're inflating the price. And this goes for all over the world. And the article points out that banks are doing this not just with aluminum. They're doing this with all kinds of commodities. They're cornering wheat markets, cotton, coffee, and what's in it for them is it forces everybody, including the bottom of the chain, that's us, consumers, to pay more every time we do anything. Every time. This is inflating the price of gas. This is inflating the price of electricity. This is inflating the price of your cell phone, of everything and this is money that, in fact, is simply going into the pockets of these despicable SOBs. Okay. I'll read you a little bit. Using special exemptions granted by the Federal Reserve Bank and relaxed regulations approved by Congress. Let's watch the Senate go all Republican now too, and let's ease up on a lot more regulations so these guys can continue to screw the world economy and screw us as well. The banks have bought up huge swaths of infrastructure. Infrastructure used to store commodities. They've bought up pipelines. They've bought up refineries. In fleets, they've bought up fleets of double-hulled. This is what banks are doing. Is this what you think a bank's supposed to be doing? I don't think so. And by law, they didn't used to be able to. What is this? It's not what a bank is for. Banks are buying up double-hulled oil tankers around the globe. And there used to be laws against such stuff. So Goldman Sachs, what they did is they bought this company that was the biggest storer of aluminum. They bought it. And now more than a quarter of the supply of aluminum in the world is kept in those Detroit warehouses. In the world. Under Goldman Sachs' thumb. Here's what people who buy aluminum, like, well, Coca-Cola, because they got to make their bottles. I mean, their cans. So, used to be, before Goldman Sachs bought this facility, Coca-Cola and others would have to wait an average of 6 weeks for their purchases to be located, retrieved to those forklift trucks, and delivered to their factories, which seems absurd. But 6 weeks, they would order, and it would take 6 weeks, and then they'd get their aluminum. Since Goldman owns it, do you know how long they wait? You place an order for aluminum, you wait 16 months. That is a 20-fold increase. And in that, so you wait for over a year and a half, and the price just keeps going up and up and up while you're waiting. It makes aluminum more expensive everywhere. Now, obviously, in the article, they explain the regulations and how they're able to do this, and all of it, on its face, should be illegal. Absolutely illegal. Banks should not be able to own these facilities. And as I said, they certainly were not allowed in my lifetime. These are all changes wrought by our new love of unfettered capitalism. And so there are rules that a commodity, a metal, cannot simply sit in a warehouse forever. There's like you have to move at least 3,000 tons every day. There's all this kind of stuff. So that's what they do. They just keep moving it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And you see they charge rental fees every day for the metal they're storing. The longer they hold this stuff, the longer they fool around with this stuff, the more money in their pocket, the higher the price of aluminum, the higher. And as I said, this isn't just aluminum, it's happening with everything. Here's a guy who is a commodities maven. He says this: it is a totally artificial cost. It is a drag on the economy. Everyone knows it. Everyone pays for it. The Securities and Exchange Commission approved a plan by J.P. Morgan to buy up 80% of the copper available on the market. You know how valuable copper is because, as you know, it's being stripped from buildings. Copper thieves are everywhere. The biggest copper thief, J.P. Morgan, with the imprimatur of the Securities and Exchange Commission late last year, allowed them. Can you imagine? A bank is told, go ahead, it's okay, you can buy up 80% of all the copper that is available. And so what they are going to do is do with copper what Goldman Sachs showed everybody what it can do with aluminum. You can do this with anything, guys. And as I said, for much of the 20th century, Congress had passed laws to keep a wall between banking and commerce. These were two different things. Banks were forbidden from owning non-financial businesses. And there's reason for that. And in case we needed to relearn a lesson, this is why. But by the 1980s, thank you, Ronald Reagan and you Republicans, by the 1980s, a wave of deregulation began to build, and banks were transformed into huge merchants. Greedy merchants. They were allowed to expand into storing commodities, transporting commodities, then owning the supply, the ships, and the pipes that the commodities move in. Listen to what an internal memo that was somehow leaked out of Goldman Sachs said. They know what they're doing. 2011. An internal Goldman memo suggested that speculation by investors, like it, accounted for about a third of the price of a barrel of oil. A commissioner at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which is the federal regulator, subsequently used that estimate to calculate that speculation added about, get this, that kind of banking speculation adds about $10 every time you fill up your car to the price. Now we're not talking a tenth of a cent anymore. When you fill up your car, this kind of stuff, $10, is directly a result of this kind of speculation by banks. Has nothing to do with anything except making them richer. So it says that some of the exemptions that they're manipulating are due to expire soon. But guess what? It says right here, the Fed appears to have no plans to require the banks to sell their facilities and other commodity infrastructure assets. In other words, there's an opportunity now to stop this or to put a little chink in it. It's not going to happen. There is no outcry against it. If every American knew that every time they filled up their tank, $10 of that served no purpose, was simply the banks playing their games, that was going directly into the banks' pockets, there wouldn't be like some kind of a outrage. But because this stuff is so arcane, because this stuff is so hard to understand, the people say nothing and just keep getting screwed. So, when you think aluminum now, think Goldman Sachs. When you think of copper, think J.P. Morgan. Their buying spree in the copper market started up about 2.5 years ago. No one knew what was happening in the copper market because all of a sudden some mystery buyer was buying up everything. And then maybe 2-3 weeks into the big buying spree, it was unmasked. J.P. Morgan got unmasked. They had by then bought up more than half of the available copper in the world. J.P. Morgan also controls metal warehouses. And it's now teaming with BlackRock and Goldman to buy 80% of the copper available on the market on behalf of their investors. I don't know if you. I'm not, when somebody doesn't understand things completely, like I don't completely understand what these guys are doing, but I understand enough. I hope I was able to clue you in to that. And if we had an informed citizenry, if we had citizens who actually paid attention and were capable of complex thought, we would be in the streets about things like this, and they would end. Caller, go ahead, please.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah, this is something, you were talking about the rich a little bit and us getting screwed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever watched the show Judge Judy, and I sometimes agree with her, I don't. But she gets these people on there, and I swear to God I'm watching a Republican judge, and she'll ask them, what do you do for a living? And the guy says, I'm on unemployment. Oh, the taxpayers and I are paying for that. And then she'll get somebody that's on disability. She'll say, you're on disability. What's wrong with you? It just seems to me that she sits up there, looks down at her nose at these little people, and then she says how we're ripping them off, the unemployed or this. That's such a drop in a bucket. And I know there's people scamming the system, sure, but it's such a drop in a bucket compared to the people at the top are just screwing the country with their subsidies and all that type of thing, like offshore, whatever it is. It's just amazing. I swear this woman's a Republican. That's just my opinion of her. And sometimes I agree with her. There are a lot of louses out there, but it's amazing how people think. These people, some of them are just trying to make a living.
Yeah.
And you do whatever how you can to feed your kids,
Yeah. Well, I think you're seeing things clearly, as usual. And I thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. All right. I got to get a break in here. Right? Yeah, I think so. And we'll be right back.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Sewickley Med Spa is proud to announce the availability of the revolutionary Tri-Polar Apollo treatment in Pittsburgh. As seen on Dr. Oz, Tri-Polar Apollo will reduce wrinkles, tighten and firm skin on your face, neck, abdomen, and thighs. This is a non-surgical, pain-free lunchtime procedure. Call today for a free consultation, 412-259-8628, or online at SewickleyMedSpa.com.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for the Clarks, Bad Company, Billy Gardell, Frankie Valli, Adina Menzel, Brian Wilson, and Leonard Skinner. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone with GPS-enabled listings at citypapermobile.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
All right, some emails from you guys. Here from Chuck. The red shoe tradition. He got this from The Week, the magazine. The red shoe tradition for popes dates back to 1566. That's according to NPR. When St. Pope Pius V decided to change the papal vestment from red to white. The Pope's cap, cape, and shoes are the only bits of red left. Historically, the red shoes were festooned with a large gold cross or gold buckle when walking outside. Okay, so all successive popes wore red shoes. John Paul II, who wore brown shoes. Benedict reinstated the red shoes. Oh, so John Paul wore brown? I swear I thought he wore red. Anyway, he reinstated the red shoes. Pope Francis is moving on to black. He's also keeping his iron-plated cross he used as an archbishop, and his papal ring, his fisherman's ring, is not gold, but just merely gold-plated silver. So he's not comfortable with ostentation, you can tell. And Dorothea writes, Lynn, just like there should be a wall between banking and commerce, there should be a wall between the health insurance provider and the health care provider. You know, these systems that we have built up, they're so corrupted and so inefficient. And they're corrupted by people who are out to pick our pockets, to produce nothing. It's always the case. these are like middlemen, right? They're producing nothing, but they're holding. This is what these banks are doing. They're holding the stuff. They don't produce it. They don't mine it. They don't smelt it. They don't do anything except raise the price of it and slow down the acquisition of it, the commerce in it, because slowing it down makes them more. And this is not how you get an economy back up and running. These are all these are drags on the economy. And Republicans are always saying, you have to free up these rich people so that they will make things flow. And no, the rich people hold it up because there's more to be made in it that way. They hoard. And consequently, it becomes more valuable. It's harder to get. It takes longer. Coca-Cola, by the way, has now gone overseas for its aluminum, by the way, because of what Goldman Sachs has done here. David, or Tea Party Dave. The Goldman Sachs aluminum company story sounds a lot like Obamacare. They are the only ones. You have to wait 3 times as long. It all ends up costing more. What a great analogy. Alas, remember, if you must say so yourself, huh? Alas, remember Goldman Sachs received TARP funds. That they received TARP funds from George W. Bush, yes, and was and is a big Obama contributor. I don't know that. Pray tell, the Tea Party group did not support bailouts for any banks or companies. And as the Brits would say, cheers. But you see, Dave, what you're failing to remember, that we have allowed through deregulation, we have allowed these banks to become too big to fail. Even George W. Bush and Hank Paulson, his Treasury Secretary, understood that. Too big to fail. Because if you don't prop them up when they're starting to topple, they topple and destroy everything under them. That's us. No one wanted to bail those SOBs out. No one did. But you did it because you had to. And everybody with a brain assumed that after we did that, we would ensure that we never allowed them to get that big again. And all I'm pointing out here is not only are we allowing them, we're letting them get bigger. By the way, I don't know if you saw that in New York State, the insurance exchanges that are part of Obamacare are up and running, or they certainly seem further along than, well, certainly in this godforsaken state. And have you noticed that the premiums appear to be coming in at half the price that they were expected to be? And everyone is saying, oh my God, all of this propaganda, all of these prognosticators about how much more expensive Obamacare was going to be, geez, maybe that's not true. People who are buying insurance on these exchanges, or will be buying, I'm not sure what the proper tense is, are paying half of what they used to. So, go figure. Go figure. I appreciate your input, all of you. Indeed, I do. And hang on, Marcy. Let me just... Almost done here. Marcy. Lynn, you did explain it. Thank you. Duh. It was very clear. I think this is a damn shame. The no good bums. I'm just tired of the rich getting richer with these schemes. I don't mind people getting richer if they're producing something of value. But these Wall Street types produce nothing. Nothing. It's a game they play at the expense of everybody. They produce nothing. They're speculators. They're gamblers. They're gambling. And by their machinations in the market, the ripple effects from their gaming has negative consequences on the economy. Nothing is built. It's just made more expensive. Nothing is built. It is just hoarded. What exists is hoarded and held for ransom. Higher and higher and higher. These, if you wonder, who's getting rich in this country? These guys are getting rich. What are they producing? What can they on their deathbeds proudly say? Look what I did. They're the ones who might have bumper stickers on their limos that said, "He who dies with the most toys wins," right? That's their ethic. And it is as soulless and amoral and repulsive an ethic as any I can imagine. Selfish on its face. They think a life well lived is the person who accumulates the most. A life well lived, and I think Thoreau said it, is a life in which the person has created something, left the world a little better, even if it's just by having tended a garden, built something, produced something. These blood-sucking, repulsive people. And they got so much money that they have all those guys up there on Capitol Hill chewing on the ears of all our so-called representatives, offering them all kinds of things to see things their way. And they're successful. And ultimately, we allow it. So while all my anger and rage is directed at them, if you start thinking of what can we do about it, it's us that need to wake up. And I'll end with Marcy's words. Unfortunately, everyone does not stay informed. And you have to be informed to fight against something like this. Yeah. Okay, that'd be it. Tomorrow, Mr. Potter. Ask him what he thinks of Darlene Harris. He'll be much too gentlemanly to say she looks as dumb as Roethlisberger. However, we'll wait and see. Have a great one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.